Charlie Kiesel. The date is March 8th.
And what's your topic?
I messed up.
Yeah, your topic.
Okay. Better read slide.
Okay.
Okay, my name is Charlie Kiesel. I've done some research on the Tri-State Tornado 1925. And it's a lot of pictures and stories from newspapers and segments from some of the books.
It was the largest tornado in history at that time, stretching from
It's the most deadly United States tornado. It's the second most deadly in the world. There were 695 killed in this tornado.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Microphone because sometimes it can get a little echoey in here depending on how many people are here. But anyway, I wanted to welcome everybody to this wonderful program. I say wonderful because I've already had a preview of it. And we have two very special guests tonight. We'll get started now. So I'm going to introduce the first guest, who will introduce the second guest. And I think most people probably know Wayne Hart. He's the chief meteorologist at WEHT, WTVW, and he knows a thing or two about tornadoes, I think. So I will hand this over to him, and then he will introduce our speaker, Charlie Kiesel.
All right. Thank you. Nice to be here this evening. Great to see a crowd like this on such a beautiful March night. And of course, this is the time of the year when we can get just about any kind of weather. Kind of moving into our primary severe weather season. But tonight we're here to talk about a remarkable weather event that impacted us right here in the Tri-State back in March of 1925. The deadliest tornado in U.S. history went through southern Illinois and into southwestern Indiana. And well, Charlie will go through all the details on this storm. But what was remarkable about this storm, obviously, in 1925, there was no warning process. So I was there on TV telling people that there was a storm on the way. Basically, when people looked and saw a black cloud, they thought it was a bad storm. Little did they know it was probably an F5 bearing down on them. So the stories from this are really remarkable. We always fear, what if this were to happen again? And it has, to a degree, a couple of times. April of 1974, big super outbreak was set up just east of us. And then more recently, a few years ago in Mississippi and Alabama, we had more than 300 people dying in one day. And, you know, back in 25 with no warning, we could kind of see that happening. But we thought in the modern era that would never happen again. 1974, weather radar was kind of in its infancy, and the warning process wasn't that great. But 2011, 2010, Mississippi and Alabama, 300 people dying in a day, and we just didn't think that was possible. But it can happen, even with the technology that we have. And storms like this will happen again. Now, fortunately, F5 tornadoes are not very common around here. They're much more common in the plains and the deep south. But obviously, they've happened here before, and they can happen again. And with a storm like this, all we can do is hope to get out of the way of it, because there's not much you can do to survive when you're in the middle of a monster like that. Charlie Kiesel is going to be conducting the program tonight. I've known Charlie for many years. He's been a faithful weather spotter for us at WEHT and now Eyewitness News and with the National Weather Service over the years. Charlie has been in teaching his entire life right here in the Gibson-Vanderbilt County area. He's been a history teacher. He spent time in the local schools in Gibson County and also at Oakland City University. So he loves history. He loves weather. And so this was a story that he wanted to tell because he also has a personal connection that he'll share with you. And when he first told me about putting this program together and was kind of interested in where he might want to do this, I immediately thought of Willard Library because in Evansville, this is the hub of history for this community. This is the treasure that we have here in Evansville and the entire area. And I told Charlie he need to be at Willard Library doing this. So Thank you for coming out tonight, and please give a warm welcome to Charlie Kiesel.
I was brought up this because my dad saw this as a 12-year-old. He was walking home from school west of Hotspot, and he was 200 blocks from the distance, and he saw this nesting deer almost again. So that's my connection there. They really got me started on it. The picture you're looking at now is just a representation of what it might look like. It was basically a mile wide and average like 3/4 of a mile in width. And it had winds up to 300 miles an hour. So it was a very terrific tornado, and I was thinking too, before this tornado, with all the loss of life, 695 people, the Weather Bureau was most interested in helping farmers with the precipitation and when it was going to rain or be dry. And I think this may have gotten them really interested in doing what we do today, weather service, protecting people. So it was a tremendous loss of life. So I'm going to put the glasses. Hang on. Oh, there's it. Now this is black and white film from Murfreesboro, Illinois. They lost 234 people. It's a silent film. I don't know where it came from. They've been film crew from California or out of Chicago. So that's some of the actual scenes in the Murfreesboro area. There were a number of fires in that area. You can imagine people being trapped in a building when it collapses and they can't get out and the building's on fire. That happened in Griffin also. I assume that's things that were found and they just put them out for people to look through, you know, see if there's anything that belonged to you or belonged to them. The Jackson County Historical Society, that was a DVD that's available with work on it. It was a sharp clip. That was where Murfreesboro was located, the Jackson County Historical Society. That's where I got that clip. Pretty substantial buildings there. There'll be a scene in a minute that shows searching for people at night times. At first, I thought there were fires there, but it was big flares that they were using to light up the rubble to try to find survivors. You'll see that effect here. I have no idea where those flares were coming from. They're very long, on a railway or something like that. I've been lighting those flares to search for people. But that happened in several different places. And in Murfreesboro, they started rebuilding. Just adding on to the buildings that have been partially destroyed. Okay, the next video is a Weather Channel video that talks a little bit about the reason this tornado was so horrific and why even farmers were killed. Because normally farmers keep a very close eye on the weather, but even they didn't know it was coming.
And in 1925, without the knowledge we have today, knowledge that came from study, film, and video, living through a tornado was very difficult indeed. There were no home movie cameras in 1925. We can only imagine what the tri-state tornado looked like, but we know it was terrifying, and we know it did not look like a tornado. It was a mile wide, wrapped in dust and debris. It killed nearly 700 people in 3 states. It began north-northwest of Ellington, Missouri at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Its forward speed, an average of 62 miles per hour. 11 people were killed before it crossed the Mississippi River into Illinois. In southern Illinois, 613 died.
After devastating Murfreesboro and after devastating West Frankfort, the tri-state tornado killed 30 farm owners, swept away farm after farm across southeast Illinois. They had no idea what they were facing. This tornado was surrounded by a massive cloud, its origin unknown. Why this thing was so shrouded in debris in a rolling fog and so shrouded in cloud so as to make it invisible and unrecognizable to farmers, we don't know. But I think it was because it was a unique event, perhaps something that doesn't occur perhaps once in 1,000 years.
Murfreesboro, Illinois suffered the greatest losses in the tri-state tornado. $10 million in damage, 234 dead. Bill Molenbrock was struggling through debris with his family. They came upon a small boy sitting in this tree.
But he couldn't have gotten up there by himself, no question. He must have been going up there, that's all. And he wasn't hurt. No, he couldn't have possibly climbed the tree, even though it's much smaller than it is today. But somehow he got up there. I don't know.
Dr. Molenbrock was in high school when the tornado hit. He was in the room to his right.
We couldn't see, couldn't get out of the room, of course. Just in there. Kids were yelling because their ears were bothering. And it lasted maybe a minute and a half total.
Students were buried alive in the study hall area. It was up to their friends to save them from suffocation.
It was the plastic. They had no place to breathe. The air couldn't get to them. And so mouth full and nose was full, and they couldn't get their arms up and dig it out themselves. And when I got to them, we got to them. Why, one of the girls gave her a bag, and there was some wire around her, and I didn't start to work on it. We had no indication that it would be a tornado of that dimension. I saw the big cloud over there, and I thought, well, I've seen that before. But that wasn't the real thing. It was the one behind us that we finally heard the roar of. So none of us saw that.
Well, I didn't know that it was a tornado. I thought it was just a bad storm. My mother said that if she hadn't looked out the window, saw it coming, she'd been on with me.
The tri-state tornado killed more people than any other single tornado in history.
My name is Forrest Potter. I was in the 3rd grade at the time, but I was home with pink eyes and came very near going back that afternoon. My father was out plowing in the garden with the horse, and I was outside close to where he was, and he told me to get in the house, and he started the house with the team of the horse and tied to the barn behind the house. We lived on 149 where you turn to go to Murfreesboro Cemetery. The storm come in front of the house and went north up the hill towards the cemetery road. Halfway, turned, fell back into town. In the meantime, my father went to started for the house, and the wind, when he opened the door, knocked him all the way across the room. He had to fight his way back to a chance to get over there, I saw a man laying on the boulevard on 21st Street between Logan and the County, and his thighs cut to the bone. And he was there with his hands
Anyway, the thing was, what happened, it found that one of its neighbors had, there it is. Anyway, one of the neighbors was seriously injured, and the leg was injured with something going through that, and he found out his sister and he got her way back together. So we did have a terrible, terrible experience. Okay, this is the basic path that they came up with for the tornado. They took 19 miles long. They thought, like I said, we studied of that, and they can't really rule out 219. And parts of those skips in where it was going along the ground. And I've got some other things to show you in a minute too, but it started around Ellington, Missouri, and ended up around Oakville, Indiana. After the study, they said they started 15 miles earlier, or it may have been a summer tornado at that time. And then it ended maybe a mile further than this shows. Again, that's a representation of what it might look like. And that's what it might look like towards the end, because they lose their energy and end up with a road type thing. That's one of the points they made early. And I believe this, maybe we can talk about this later, that appeared to be associated with the low pressure center. And that would have fitted with all kinds of moisture. There was some in 2013 restudy of where they found damage along the trail. And of course, out in the open, I've traced down the tornado went through Petersburg, and there were places where I couldn't tell what it was. Because you could tell where the trees had been damaged and go across the field, you couldn't tell anything. A few months later. Anyway, that was Princeton. And I told you before it was going to be mostly about Griffin, Owensville, and Princeton. That's the damage in Princeton. Basically, the 900 block on the south. And again, more damage to the city there, not going to find much damage in the country. And it went on towards Oakville, and then some of the scattered damage there. Okay, Griffin, these were pictures I found in the people diner in the city of the town of Griffin. And they were on the wall of the restaurant. They allowed me to copy those. Now, another thing to run into, notice that different numbers here on some of these. Princeton finally came up with 45. Most authors agree with that. 45 people died as a result of their injuries or killed directly by the tornado. Owensville area found a discrepancy anywhere from 17 to 24 killed, and most of that was outside. Griffin High School, notice how the walls are. The Red Cross came in and set up tents for temporary shelter. And the rubble was still in Griffin. Trees were stripped their smaller limbs. And again, it's a hit or miss. You know, tornado damage today, one house is standing, the one next to it is totally gone. So it's similar here. Griffin, Indiana. There were fires after the tornado came through. People were around the stove, maybe getting ready for supper, and they had coal stoves or wood stoves. And people walking in town, the tornado had picked up a lot of mud. People were plastered with mud. And, dry, and they just, couldn't tell people hardly identify each other. The restaurant They found a child, you hear stories of children that picked up and carried maybe a half a mile from their home. The girl, they finally got her, died with her parents, but her face was just beat to a pulp. You really couldn't recognize her. And she had teeth knocked out, and she didn't survive. Sometimes I didn't find out if people survived a lot in some of these stories. Now, the help had become a railroad. Came from Chicago, came from the Evansville area. And there was number 2 down Main Street of Brooklyn with that same house on the road. And again, this is all Brooklyn. And again, looking at the same Main Street in the same direction, but we've got cars going down the street afterwards. And the militia, I got that picture from the library here, and the militia came in from Evansville, among other places to help out. And that's an overall, there was a photographer, I believe, from Willard Library. He took this panoramic view of the damage to the equipment. Again, you can see that house on Main Street there at the top row. And that's a close-up of one section of it. Now, Redmond has a memorial park to the people who died in this tornado. And that's the plaque they put up. Information on both sides. It's about a water sleep on maybe inside. They've got a gazebo there that had that panoramic picture I showed you. They have a monument. There's where I got the number of dead. The number of dead in Griffin doesn't match up. If you count on here, there's quite a few that died in Griffin. And maybe because they died afterwards and didn't get reported in the newspaper. They died from their wounds or injuries. That picture really caught my attention. That's all that was left. Probably a Model T, Model A Ford. It was picked up about 15 feet in the air. The guy had jumped out of it, and he survived. That's all that was left of the car. A wheel and a motor block. Four-cylinder motor block. And I found this at USI. The picture I got at the whole stuff, it's an old picture, so it probably didn't be copied quickly because it's getting very thin and dull. But anyway, John Payne, some of you may remember him as the weatherman locally. That was information that came from his scrapbook at USI. Okay, we have reports of a one large vortex and sometimes multiple vortexes. Again, a story of a baby found on Lincoln, in the Oldesville area. King family lost 4 of their members. Walters family, public buildings, and Oldesville, including the library, were like triages. Now, how they put this in here to show you what the multiple vortex that looked like. Supposedly, that's one of the first pictures ever taken of a tornado. And they think it's been tampered with. Look at the top of it. That doesn't look like right. The least at the bottom of it, that believed to be the first picture ever taken of a tornado, and I just included it because of the vortexes. And again, I know what that looked like, but basically it was 3/4 sometime. The noise was so loud they couldn't hear each other even though they were screaming. Another story, a porch swing coming through the front window. A brother of the family, the son in the family, was pinned under a wall. His father, luckily, could get up and he was able to get out of it. The father walked over the wall and would have rushed him back into breathing, so he was able to get out. Another brother flew out the back door of the schoolhouse. He walked back, thought he had to look like a zombie. They saw the neighbor mentioned laying on the ground with a table leg for his body. So there were horrific damages and horrific sights. I talked to a professor at Oklahoma City University, met a friend who was living near Carmine, Illinois. The tornado blew about 2 miles across Carmine. And she said after that tornado, this lady was covered with pain. It's kind of like going off the war, the cars you see. All the lights. And again, I don't believe that buildings were taken off their foundations and sometimes totally wiped out. These are places that were mentioned in the South End. That's the railroad shops, repairs, and welding on locomotives. Another scene from Princeton. Okay, this was Peter Faulkner's book, William Faulkner. Anyway, this lady was setting the windows near a window and she was hitting. The window glass was blown out and it decapitated her. Cut her head off, like it says here, sick, and then cut up a ribbon. Kiesel, she had minor damage. Her daughter was so frightened she didn't talk for 2 days. And we heard this earlier. The nephew, he couldn't hear. And apparently what had happened, the plaster had gotten his ears, the dust, and then it rained and it fogged it up, kind of like having earwax, and he couldn't hear. Down at the bottom, her sister was injured with a big long splinter of a board from a barn. Her hip came out of her spine, left a hole big enough to put 2 hands in. And again, these are horrific things that you wouldn't think of maybe. 2 of 4 and in the hospital together. I think maybe they both survived. Like I said, sometimes you won't find the entire story. There's another story here in Princeton. Fire waste from Ohio. You're familiar with Princeton. Here's one of the examples I was looking for. Board driven through another board. Was a straw of the board. That had a lot of animals and people. Refuge in the south end of Princeton, all the railroad yards. Interstate picture of an old car that survived better than the one with the motor missing. Or rather, the car missing the motor there. That's the Heinz plant, and I think a lot of people just got off work and out of school. Princeton was lucky. There were some schools like in Murfreesboro where they would lose like 30 children. There's a case in Angela Mason's book, a principal of a school, and I forget which school it was. The bell, the school bell, fell and cut his daughter in 2. I mean, that's one of the horrific things that happened. Notice the cow standing there next to all the life still. Again, can you imagine what would happen if the tornado had hit while the kids were still at school? They just got done dismissed maybe 15 minutes or half hour sooner.
Charlie, my father-in-law went to that school. It was about 4:30 when it hit. He said they just come home. To school, so it was a good thing.
We were lucky to come out here. Okay, a few oddities and injuries. Some of these were oddities. hospital. She had a plank. There was her body. They took her down, and so required 8 people to get the plank out. I'm assuming, you know, they'd be holding her, and they'd be cutting the cord off, and then trying to pull it out some way. But anyway, that's well, she died Saturday morning after having been brought in. That was in the post-bill paper. Okay, this is kind of an odd one. There was a picture done, and this guy thought that the wind went by, that it didn't move up. They went over, looked at it, and it twisted off the pipe.
Wow.
I mean, you can imagine it starts wobbling in the wind, and you got the handle there, would be a little bit outside, maybe they could have done. They had the dynamite in the truck, luckily they didn't stand in the truck, because they got Peter out and let the dynamite come off. Straws were blown in the trees. Years later, they did experiments on that, shooting straw at trees and boards to see how deep it would penetrate with the tornado type winds, and it was up to a quarter-inch penetration with a piece of straw. A squirrel, 18 years old, had crawled a quarter mile with a broken arm and broken ankles. And I didn't find anything else about how the story ended. Bill Jones, I remember that from years ago when I looked into this. He was like going up the fence, and then this, yes, you know, the kite that kept the points on this hero, it been blown against him. And that hooked him, I guess, and injured him there too. Bill Jones' house was demolished, all the outlets blown away for crib. His 4 sisters were killed. This is the guy that I showed you earlier, just the motor was left. He was lifted in the air, he fell out. And good thing he did. And I don't know how he survived it, but somehow he did, by being thrown out of the car or something else. Gathering together in one room, or gathering together in the central part of your house, sticking over walls. Maybe that's kind of what happened with these people. None of them were hurt. They gathered in one room. 5-year-old boy was blown into the bark of a tree, probably didn't survive, and put him out of taxes. These guys did something we kind of suggested. They were caught on the boat, they took refuge under a bridge. stuff started falling out of the sky and then sand. And people were calling in, what's going on? And they were finding all kinds of things, pieces of buildings, roofing. They found this rain rock. And again, you have to wonder, did they assume that rain rock came from Princeton? You know, or maybe it was found laying somewhere odd. But again, people started hearing about what tornadoes could do, and I think the story is what happened there. They did put it to good use. They put it one that explained themselves on commercial, and it gained sympathy for the 3 girls who were laying dead in Princeton, Mars. It might have been their friends off. Most likely not. But it made, gave people a feeling that they needed help. Now, here's a strange one. And Ray Wright has this book in his Princeton history. There's a guy in Princeton I talked to, and supposedly, according to the newspaper story, this eagle was found around the token. It was still warm, and if you read that, it was assumed that maybe it came from Willard, Missouri. What do you think? It's still warm. That's 3.5 hours away. The bird's feathers apparently weren't ruffled. It looks like it would have been injured if it did not throw all the other debris. So again, this was a story that might have come to an eagle, the American eagle, symbol of the country. It was probably mounted and preserved, and people donated because it made them feel that they needed to help out in this cause. So I talked to the guy that has a photograph, and he said his father took it, and he has originally I thought maybe it was banded or something, that they could find out where it came from. So I traced it down. I called it the 3 museums in Indianapolis. See if they had it. What would you do with the stuffed eagle? I got done with it. And they looked around, one had in their collection. I gave them a picture of it, they checked it out. And back then, it was not illegal to have an eagle stuffed. But this is one of the other stories that came out of this because of things that people have heard probably. Okay, other reports. And again, this is in the sins. They noticed all kinds of leaves and straw and carpets were blowing in the sky, carried along with the winds, shingles, weatherboarding, roofing material. Everything was becoming littered, and they wondered where this was coming from. So it wasn't about 5 o'clock that they found out the tornado had started raining. But that stuff was being brought on the sin, littering the town. Winfield, American, carrier, found a letter, the one there from, what was it called? Tornado hit Mark. It was a later report. I gave this to Maddie. She was one of those meteorologists that were studying the tornado in 2013. It's kind of indicating the tornado turned even further to the left. As it moved towards Princeton, it took a left turn. But it may very well have been a separate tornado to that time. Okay, another example of power. Minister's family. They protected themselves. Again, like you hear today, get something heavy around you. In this case, iron beds help to save their lives. They're laid down between those. A rooster, here's another one for you. See what you think of that. Okay, I can imagine there's a very hungry rooster, and they think of feed or something at telephone pole. If it sticks your feet in there, you can't get it out. I mean, I don't know. They didn't have any feathers lost. Normally, they say a bird is in distress and they'll lose their feathers. And we got a case with that later on. Mount Carmel, they had a lot of hail. They had ice-coated pieces of hard spots, shingles, bits of wood. That was an element in Mount Carmel. A baby was carried burning in the house, found alive. It was expected to survive. This was interesting. They were cleaning up rubble in Griffin, and 8 days later, they were clearing away the brush on top of a cistern, and they found a man and woman still alive and alive with that. Now, did they pull in there? Did they decide to jump in? Did they climb in? Again, there's no end to that story. story many times reading through these. They grabbed onto a tree and just above their head, a fender bottle and sliced the tree off right above their heads. Got into a walk-in icebox. Again, into something sturdy. Today, we would call it sperm shelter, or say, what we call those things today. The words of the shelters for selling.
Well, you can put it below ground or above ground.
Like a metal container of some kind.
Yeah, reinforced steel.
Yeah.
Can anchor to the foundation of your garage or home.
Yeah. But anyway, there's another one, Parish Online. She was crushed with that guilt. Couldn't recognize her except for her red hair. When the tornado was fence until the wall. Inside of it was a chicken. Now, I can believe that because in Angela's book, she says when birds are attacked like a fox, all the fox gets is a bunch of feathers. Under stress, they'll release the feathers. And maybe that's what happened here. It was pretty stressed after they got wound up in that ball of wire. Okay, these are kind of sad. George Speck was caught inside his house. Everyone else got into the storm cellar. He went back to the house. His mother was in a wheelchair and he supplied the papers. They didn't make it back to the shelter. Katie had a broken leg, cut over her eye. George had a piece of 204 in his chest and his lung was damaged, and he died as a result of that. Never crossed the line. Another thing. This lady was afraid to go on the storm shelter. Her husband threatened her to come in there, but she was so afraid that he'd get trapped in there, or rumble would close the door. So she went back to the house. They found her, or James did, very black and blue, and she took a breath and died. All jumping out. And one of the people's listener, they had a picture of a cow going through the air. Tornado picked up a cow. I kind of laughed when I saw that. Bob Jones related the story of that happening. There was also a horse that had a board through it, and the horse. Bottom part of this, a lady was hit by something, knocked that through her teeth, cut her chin so badly, she could take her tongue out. Her chin. And here are some of the high power, not straw, but boards through trees. And that's a Longfellow school in Murfreesboro, and our children were killed there. The school was still in session. Logan was on the place where the kids were killed, some of them. And here is a list of all the items that they come up with. And again, if you look at Griffin, it's got 25. But the line that they have has 50 something. Okay, here's the basic things about the tornado. What was very impressive, including 67 harm. That's very bad. Sometimes we have supercells that do that. And in this case, it was associated with the tornado. People didn't have much time realizing what was coming. Basic facts here. 3 states and some of the major cities. 19 miles, they did a study in 2013 that world stands. They re-studied the best they could. You can imagine all the different states trying to do that. Okay, one thing I want to comment on, real quickly, in the new study they did, they went back like all the data they could because it was associated with low pressure center. And to me, as an amateur, it was exactly the right spot with that low pressure, feeding it with all it needed to stay on the ground. And they had some places where they had 2-mile gaps between prime and prime damage. And they're open territory like it's up. And I'm wondering, maybe you told Calvin this too, what do you think about a tornado that's a mile wide and moving 70 miles an hour? And that means in 2 minutes, the gap, 2-mile gap, in 2 minutes you go up and back down